We're here with Jonathan Spalter, Chairman of Mobile Future at the Technology Policy Summit. Jonathan, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Why don't we start today with just a little explanation of what Mobile Future is and what you guys are working for.
Mobile Future is a broad-based coalition of mobile and wireless companies that specialize in applications and services and content, but also we represent membership organizations, not-for-profits, that believe that the future of the mobile and wireless space is very important to their mission, to their members, and to the future of our country.
And there's been lots of talk at the summit about the need for a national broadband strategy. What role should mobile broadband play in that strategy?
I think it plays absolutely the critical leg of the foundation of our future broadband strategy. Mobile is an incredibly important element in the future direction, not only of our economy, but our society. The impacts that mobile development and mobile adoption is having in driving better uses of healthcare, more access to education, better deployment of public safety, integration and cooperation between our men and women who are our first responders, is based on mobile technology and wireless performance. Also, we can't diminish the fact that mobile and wireless really is driving not only innovation in our country's economy, but also job creation, good jobs, good wages across our country. It's extremely important that the broadband strategy that's being talked about right now by Congress, by the FCC, and at the state and local level really see that creating an environment for more, not less, mobile deployment, not only in rural areas, but in areas that have not been traditionally well served or that are underserved in key populations in our country, is incredibly important.
And there's also been a lot of talk about adoption and the barriers we currently face in this country, from PC ownership to digital literacy. Is mobile uniquely positioned to help the country address these challenges?
I believe it is. It can have a really catalytic, game-changing impact. Let's just look at some of the facts. Well, first, let's acknowledge that there has been tremendous advancement in the deployment of internet protocol serving many populations, but there still are folks in our country who are not at the table. Only 41% of African Americans have access to broadband. 38% of rural Americans only have access to broadband. It's important that we realize that there still are communities in our country that can do better and do well if they can get access to more, not less, broadband. What's important and what's revolutionary in many ways is that it has been traditionally underserved populations like African Americans and Hispanic Americans that themselves are driving the data usage of mobile networks. For example, African Americans and Hispanic Americans in our country are the key leaders in the usage of data across our mobile networks. That's an astoundingly important statistic, but it also is indicative of why and how we actually need to focus more in facilitating and creating advantages for these populations to get onto the mobile broadband bandwagon. And I think the results of that effort, both from a technical perspective, from a business perspective, but also from a policy perspective, will really be beneficial for not only those communities, but for our nation at large.
And now you're someone who spends a lot of time in Silicon Valley and also a lot of time in Washington. There's been a lot of talk at this conference about perhaps an understanding gap between these two communities, particularly when it comes to U.S. technology policy. There's something you would say, that you wish Washington would understand more about Silicon Valley and Silicon Valley would understand more about Washington. What advice would you give to these two communities as they try and work out these policies?
It's a very important point that there is this growing gap between the experiences and the understanding and the education of those who inhabit the innovative centers of our country, like Silicon Valley, but not limited to Silicon Valley, and those who are given the franchise to actually develop the regulatory and policy frameworks that will be guiding our future in Washington, D.C., but also in many of our state capitals. It's important that as we advance to the next generations of mobile technology and wireless technology, that these two sides actually can spend more time together learning from each other, that policy not be necessarily directed by engineers, but at the same time that engineers not be directed by policy and policymakers. The future will be one where there's going to be more collaboration and public-private partnerships between those who are innovating, investing in companies, and deploying the algorithms and the engineering infrastructure for the future of our technology in our country, and those who are going to be guiding it on a regulatory and policy level. All too often, those communities haven't really been able to break bread and really understand the other side. I think now we understand the critical importance of mobile and wireless to our nation's future and our economy, and therefore I think it's going to be very important that there be bridges between these communities, bridges of not only understanding and learning on both sides, but bridges of cooperation and partnership.
Jonathan Spalter, Mobile Future. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.